Hello, and welcome to our online gathering. My name is Brett, and on behalf of the Calvary family, I want to say we're so glad that you're here. Thank you for inviting us into your home today. If you are brand new to Calvary and you have never connected with us before, we would like to give you a gift, Coffee on Us. Just text the word online to 717-400-8050, and we will get you set up with a digital gift card for Starbucks coffee. This is just our way of saying thank you for saying hi and jumping in today. So let me give you an idea of what you can expect in the next hour or so. First, we're going to go into a time of worship, a time of singing. We welcome you to join in or just watch and listen. The lyrics will be on the screen no matter what you're doing. After that, Pastor Stacy will be with us delivering the next sermon in the If series, which has been dynamic. Let me pray for us, and we're going to get started right here. Father, I thank you that you are building your kingdom across the nations, and that you're using digital media, and that those that have joined us today, that you want to touch their hearts, you want to change their lives, you want to bring peace, hope, and joy immeasurable by the power of your Holy Spirit. And so I ask that you would do exactly that. Everything that you have in your heart for everybody watching, would you release it right now in the name of Jesus? Amen. All right, now let's get into our time of worship. Steve Logue and the worship team are going to start this song.
Of the blind, there's no one like you, none like you. Into the darkness you shine, out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Into the darkness you shine, out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? Then what could stand against? Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? Then what could stand against?
Oh man, what a great song. Our God is greater. Our God is mighty. Let me just pray for us real quick. Father, I thank you that you're greater, that you're mighty, that any problem that we have is dwarfed compared to your great power and glory, and that you have plans that cannot be thwarted by any obstacle, by any disappointment, by anything. And so I just ask that you would do what you love to do and be all that you are in our lives today as we continue with this service. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, once again, welcome to Calvary Church. My name is Brett. I'm part of the Calvary team here. And here at Calvary, we are on mission to catalyze an epic release of Jesus-apprentices who connect to Christ, community, and calling. Now, last week was another one of our CWOW weekends. That means that instead of gathering for service on Sunday morning, we scattered into our communities and our neighborhoods. And then that kicked off what we called all of last week, Serve Week. That means over the last week, hundreds of Calvary folks have been jumping into dozens of projects, things like painting projects, for people that needed help with that, yard work, mulching, garden stuff, that kind of thing for people that were really looking for help. And then, of course, there were cleanup projects as well. Well, it's never too late to serve someone. If you didn't get to jump into Serve Week, or if you did and you're looking for more, keep your eyes open for opportunities in your own neighborhood. We don't need to just be invited to serve. We just need to be willing, all right? Now, today, we're going to talk a little bit about generosity. You're going to have an opportunity to give through our offering. And I just want to remind us of one of my favorite stories in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 16. And it's where Jesus tells this story of the parable of the dishonest manager. And you can go to Luke 16 and read the whole thing. But after this really sort of interesting back and forth about a guy who gets fired from his job, but then thinks of a way to kind of get into another job after he's out of that one, the bottom line of the parable, Jesus says is, think about what you do with money and use it to make friends with yourselves that will receive you into the life after this one. And there's this beautiful principle that when we operate in generosity, we're essentially investing in a life beyond ourselves and bigger than us. And that is one of the best reasons to be generous, is because it takes our eyes off of our own little circumstances. It takes our vision and our scope off of just the years that we live on this life, and it's investing in the life of the future that will even outlast each of our lives. So it's absolutely beautiful. So if you want to donate today, you can give your offering through the Calvary app, or just go to the site and then you can follow the link there. Now, in just a minute, Pastor Stacy will be with us as we continue our teaching series called If.
Last year has been filled with grief and groaning, with loss and loneliness, with darkness and doubt. Perhaps like Mary and Martha when their brother Lazarus died, you and I have come to Jesus a time or two with the words, "Lord, if only you would have been there, this would not have happened." If only. This last year has been filled with if onlys. But we don't have to stop at if only. There's also what if. What if are the words of Easter. They are the words of hope and expectancy. What if it's true? What if He is the resurrection and the life? What if the empty tomb is overflowing with hope? What if resurrection power has been let loose in the world? What if a turn of the page has already come? What if He is our resurrection champion? But it turns out that what ifs are little more than wishes and dreams until they are gripped by the even if. Even if I'm the only one. Even if life has led me to the graveyard. Even if I think I know better. If you say so, Jesus, I will do it. Even if is the passionate commitment that we need to move into the next chapter. When When Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life, he's really asking, do you trust me? In the midst of the mess and the loss, in the midst of racism, shootings, political turmoil, in the midst of COVID-19, divorce, depression, and despair, Jesus asks us, do you trust that right now, at this moment, I am your champion?
Well, howdy. I'm Stacy Sublett. I'm one of the pastors here at Calvary, specifically at Harvest Fields. And I've been part of the Calvary family for a long time, since 1998. I've had the privilege of serving alongside Dan Nold and the Calvary family in many different roles over the past 23 years. It's my honor to bring the closing message in our If series. I hope that you've enjoyed this series as much as I have. It's been encouraging and inspiring, even a little convicting at times, tracking along with the even ifs and the if onlys, and to consider the what ifs. I'm going to give us another what if to consider today. But before we get too far along in this, let me pray. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for the ways that you speak to us, the way that you shape us. Thanks for wanting to communicate and connect with us. I pray that as we listen today, you would speak to our hearts. Would you bring your word alive to us? Holy Spirit, we invite you to steer us and to guide us, to shape us, and to take us deeper into Jesus today. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, for the greater part of the pandemic, we've been hearing Pastor Dan remind us to be still. That's been one of the main ideas, one of the key messages that were on repeat for the past 15 months. But at some point, I remember Dan saying that we shouldn't be surprised to hear Jesus to ask us to step out of our comfort zone, that we might expect Jesus to call us to take on a task that's uncomfortable, maybe even difficult. As I look back on my life, I can see these parallel tracks running through my story. Be still and come follow me. Get healed up and get your booty on the dance floor. It's never been a do to be, and it's not a be to do. It's both, and it's being and doing. So which is more important? Both are vital, aren't they? You might remember Dan comparing it to breathing. Which is more important, breathing in or breathing out? Well, without both, you're in a world of hurt, aren't you? So let me just give you a moment to pause right now and think for a moment. Which track would you say is more relevant to you today? Be still or let's go? Now, I used to think that I could only focus on one of those two tracks at a time. Maybe you felt the same way. In fact, I used to hear people talk about Calvary as a great place to come and rest, to heal, to get better after being wounded in some other places. But as I've thought about it a little bit more, I'm realizing that it's not out of the question for God to do a healing work in us as we follow Him. It doesn't have to be an either or. It can be a both and. If you study the lives of those who actually walked around with Jesus, that first group of men and women, Jesus-apprentices, most of them were carrying some kind of baggage, just like we are. And they certainly didn't have everything figured out. They had their flaws, their faults, their doubts and quirks, but they lived the dance of being still, knowing God, and flowing with the work of Jesus. Now, there's definitely a time and a need for us to be still, to stop striving, to let our hands go slack. But there's also a time for action, a time to lean in and run hard with the Lord. Now, Dan said that we shouldn't be surprised to hear Jesus call us to a task or a role that seems to be difficult, something out of our comfort zone, bigger than our capacity, because that's kind of what Jesus does, isn't it? We should expect to hear Jesus call us to do hard things. After all, that's what He did with the original group of apprentices. You probably remember this. Jesus said, "Come follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." He said that to Peter and Andrew, James, and John in Matthew chapter 4. Can you imagine hearing those words for the first time? My guess is that we can't. You've heard the story often enough, and it sounds normal to our ears now. But when those 4 heard it for the first time, it had to sound a little ridiculous, a little crazy, kind of like, follow you? You mean like for real? Follow you. Leave our jobs, leave our income, our responsibilities, leave our families and go walking around with you. You're kidding, right? And fish for people. I can see them looking at each other. What does that even mean, fish for people? But you know what happened, don't you? They took the leap. They said yes to Jesus. They became part of the team. And they're known as the pillars of the church, the apostles of Jesus. They left their nets and they left their mark on the world. Their fingerprints are all over the church of Jesus because they said yes. You and I are following Jesus today in part because of their influence. Now, not everybody was given that invitation. You know that, right? I don't know how exclusive the call was, how many people were given the opportunity to actually travel with Jesus. But there are several people in the gospel record who didn't become part of Jesus' traveling team. As you make your way through the Gospels, you'll find that there are many stories of healing and deliverance that don't end up with Jesus saying, okay, now come, walk with me. There's the demoniac healed in the tombs near the Sea of Galilee. The woman at the well in Samaria, the wee little man, Zacchaeus. In fact, some of the people that Jesus met and ministered to were pointedly told to stay home, don't come with me, go tell your story to your family, your friends, your neighbors. The specifics might have been different, but the call was the same. For those who responded well to the call of Jesus, those 2 tracks that Jesus laid down were always the same. Be still, know the Lord, and join his mission of love and hope, redemption in your community. But as I was thinking about this, I also remember the story of Rich. Do you know the story of Rich from the Bible? Matthew 19 and Mark 10 tell us the story. His name really wasn't Rich. But they tell us the story of a young man who was so excited to meet Jesus. He'd heard all about the things that Jesus was doing, the miracles, the teaching about the kingdom, and he had a burning question that he knew Jesus could answer. Listen to the way Eugene Peterson translates this in The Message. This is from Mark chapter 10. As he went out into the street, a man came running up, greeted him with great reverence, and asked, "Good teacher, what must I do to get eternal life?" Jesus said, "Why are you calling me good? No one is good, only God. You know the commandments. Don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat, honor your father and mother." The young man said, "Teacher, I have from my youth kept them all." Jesus looked him hard in the eye and loved him. He said, "There's one thing left. Go sell whatever you own, give it to the poor, and all your wealth will then be heavenly wealth. And come, follow me." The man's face clouded over. That was the last thing he expected to hear, and he walked off with a heavy heart. He was holding on tight to a lot of things and not about to let go. Oh, what a tragedy. That story rips me up every time I read it. I can't help but think about the what if. What if the rich young ruler had said yes? He didn't though, did he? He said no. Jesus and the others could see it in his face, and he walked away. And in his saying no, what did he miss? Well, in a nutshell, he missed the last week of the life of Jesus, because that's when this happened, right at the beginning of the last week of Jesus' life. He missed all the things that happened on the way into Jerusalem. He missed the healing of blind Bartimaeus. He missed the transformation of Zacchaeus. He missed Mary anointing the feet of Jesus in preparation for his death. He missed the triumphal entry. He missed the Last Supper, the Passover meal that Jesus shared. He missed all the events of the arrest, trial, crucifixion, and resurrection. He missed the climax of the story. He missed being an eyewitness to the last week of Jesus walking this earth, teaching and declaring the way of the kingdom. But even bigger than that, he missed being part of the story. He missed his role in the redemptive work of Jesus in his town, in his neighborhood. He missed the kingdom. And it's so sad because that was his question when he met Jesus, right? What must I do to get eternal life? He wanted to gain access to the kingdom, and when Jesus told him what he needed to do, he walked away. Now, if he had said yes to Jesus, the entire trajectory of his life would have been changed forever. Who knows who he could have become in the history of the church? He might have been someone that we remember and celebrate right alongside Mary and Joseph, Peter and Andrew, James and John, Mary Magdalene, Mary, Martha, Lazarus, Paul and Barnabas, Priscilla and Aquila. But instead, we only know him as the unnamed guy who walked away from the invitation to follow Jesus because he had a lot of stuff and his stuff had him. Every time I read his story, I feel pity for this young man. I wonder how his life would have been different if only he had said yes. What if? And it doesn't usually take me too long to turn that question inward, back to myself, to my family, my friends, those of us who gather to worship Jesus. What if? What if I say yes to Jesus? What if you say yes to Jesus today? You know it's a choice that you get to make every day, don't you? You realize that every time your eyes pop open and your feet hit the floor and you roll out of bed, you get the opportunity to choose to say yes to Jesus all over again. And some of you are thinking right now, Stace, what would it mean for me to say yes to following Jesus today, here, now, fresh and full? Well, I'm glad you asked because that's actually what I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes. I've got some good news and some bad news. Which do you want first, the bad news or the good news? I like to end on a good note, so let's tackle the tough stuff first and get that out of the way. If you say yes to Jesus, it'll cost you. Absolutely will. Jesus never tried to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I love him for his honesty. He never worked the bait and switch. He never even implied that the life of a Jesus follower would be all peaches and cream. And if anybody's ever told you that your life is going to get easier if you decide to follow Jesus, they're lying to you. Oh, don't get me wrong. Your life will absolutely get better. But it's also going to get a lot more complicated and more difficult once you join Team Jesus. Jesus flat out told his followers that they would have trouble in this world. He promised that they would be misunderstood by their families, persecuted by the government, taken advantage of by their neighbors, that they'd be lied about and considered outsiders, that they would suffer for following him. In fact, when he called Saul, who became the Apostle Paul, to be part of the team, when he called Saul, he specifically sent a man named Ananias to go talk to him face to face. And Ananias objected. He knew all about this guy, Saul. And God said, no, you have to go. He's a chosen instrument of mine to carry my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. For I will show him how much he must suffer for the sake of my name. You're probably thinking, yes, let's go. Who wouldn't want to sign up to be part of that team? Well, here's what I know. Some of you have already felt the pinch. You've already experienced the pain and suffering that Jesus promised would accompany this path. This is by no means a complete list, but let me give you some general categories of what I think Jesus meant. If you say yes to Jesus, it will cost you control, comfort, and convenience. When you ask Jesus to come into your life, you're agreeing to give him control. We call him the Savior because that's what he does. He takes away our sin and gives us eternal life. But did you know that in the New Testament, the most frequently used title for Jesus is Lord? And although we don't use that term very often in our day-to-day, we're all quite familiar with another word, boss. That's basically what Lord means. It means someone who has authority, someone who has power and control. The Word of God, the Bible describes Jesus as the head of the church, the ruler over all creation, the Lord of lords, and the King of kings. And the Lord Jesus has a will for your life that he intends for you to obey. That could sound kind of ominous, kind of dark, if it weren't for the fact that his will is perfectly designed for His glory and for our good. That's a sermon for another day. So comfort and convenience, I'm going to link those two together because they're pretty closely tied. The bottom line is that when you study the lives of those who have followed Jesus, their stories are marked by sacrifice and suffering, by going through trials and tribulations. And you're probably thinking, Stacy, you're really selling this very well, making it sound great to be an apprentice of Jesus. But it's true, isn't it? Let me tell you the story of the one day in the life of the early church. The apostles have been performing miracles, signs, and wonders, healing the sick, casting out demons. They're filling the city of Jerusalem with the message of Jesus, this man who gave his life, died, and came back from the dead. So they were arrested, the apostles were, by the Sanhedrin, the Jewish Supreme Court, and they were thrown into jail. That night, an angel broke them out, and they went right back into the city to preach and carry on the ministry. The next day, the Jewish guards came to look for them, and they weren't in jail, and they found them downtown, and they brought them back to the Sanhedrin, where ultimately these men were beaten and strictly charged to stop talking about Jesus. But listen to how they responded to this adversity. Acts 5 says they left the presence of the council rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer dishonor for the name. And every day in the temple and from house to house, that's gathered and scattered, they did not cease teaching and preaching that the Christ is Jesus. So it sounds rough, and it sounds like there's a lot of bad news, right? But it can't all be just tough stuff, can it? There has to be an upside to this. And I'm not talking just about pie in the sky by and by when you die. You know what I mean, that when you get to heaven, everything will be fine and you get your wings and you get a harp. That's also wrong, but that's also another sermon. Let me give you some good news, because there is some good news, great news. When you say yes to Jesus, your life will truly count. Your life will have meaning. Your life will count for the kingdom. You get to be part of His redemptive work in this world. You get to be part of what God's doing in the here and now. Oh, and that's another subtle but absolutely meaningful perspective shift. And in fact, I know this will be a game changer for some of you. You don't have to do anything for Jesus to love you, for Him to accept you, for Him to give you eternal life, His forgiveness, His access to the kingdom. He already loves you. That's already done. Paul wrote to the Jesus-apprentices in Rome later in his life to remind them that God shows His love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Before you even gave God a thought, before you were born, God had already laid out His heart, demonstrating His great love for us. You can't earn it. It's a gift that He gives us, a gift that we receive by grace through faith. That's in another one of Paul's letters. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to. Here's the shift. You get to. You get to do these things because of His invitation to join Him on mission. So that's the perspective shift. You don't have to. You get to. You have permission to be part of God's family. And when you become part of God's family, you get to join in all of the family activities. When we adopted our kids, Kim and I, and we've adopted a bunch of them, each time we stood before a judge who looked us in the eye and said that with the stroke of this mighty pen, I am declaring this child to be your daughter, your son, with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities and expectations of any other child in your family. That child became part of Team Sublett. He gets to live like every other member of the family. So let me ask you, are you living like you're part of the family of God? Or is that an area that needs a foundational change? What if you say yes to Jesus? More good news. If you say yes to Jesus, His mission becomes your mission. Not only are you part of his family, but you also get to be part of a team of operatives, I like that word, bringing the greatest message the world has ever known to a people desperate for hope, healing, forgiveness, deliverance, rescue, and renewal. You get to. This is a perk. This is a privilege. Not everyone in our community is going to choose to be part of this team. So not everyone will have a hand in this story. But Jesus makes it possible for your life to make a difference, for your life to matter, for you to be part of someone else's redemption story. We get to live as a family of missionary servants sent as disciples who make disciples. Now, for the last few years, we've been talking about Calvary's 2030 vision. Maybe you've heard this already. This big, hairy, audacious goal that we believe God is calling us to pursue. The pandemic changed a lot of things in our lives, but it hasn't changed our conviction about our mission. We believe that by the end of 2030, God wants to work through us to double the number of Jesus-apprentices in central Pennsylvania and to catalyze an epic release of leaders in our community and beyond. And those are not small goals. I realize that. And we're not just talking about growing Calvary. We're not talking about doubling the number of people who call Calvary their home church, adding another worship service, or launching another Calvary site. These ideas are so big that even if we pull out all the stops, and if every last one of you jumps into these things with both feet, we're still going to need help. That's one of the reasons that we're confident this is a God thing, not just a Pastor Dan thing or a Calvary thing. We're going to have to partner with other churches. Other congregations from around central Pennsylvania and beyond are going to have to catch this vision and want to be part of what God's doing. And the beautiful thing in this is that none of this is exclusive to Calvary. We believe that the strategies and principles that we're talking about are biblical kingdom values, that every church, every gathering of believers can and should move in this direction. So let me take just a moment to remind you about some of our FYM principles. Maybe you don't even know what FYM, front yard mission. Some of you have been living out these principles without even really knowing that these would become our rails to run on. But for others of you, this is a relatively new idea, and this is going to feel like a stretch. And that's okay. So here are the FYM, the front yard mission principles, the core ideas and actions behind the way we're going to live as the apprentices of Jesus when we gather for worship and scatter throughout our neighborhoods and communities. The first one is simply pray first. This was the method and the model of Jesus. You can't miss this if you read the Gospels. Every time Jesus had a decision to make, every time he faced an obstacle or a transition, he withdrew from the crowds and got alone with his Father. He spent time talking, listening to the Father's heart, and gaining the Father's perspective. So that's why we're calling you to pray and worship together almost every Sunday night at what we call the flood. We want to flood Happy Valley with prayer. That's why we have a 24/7 prayer wall. Some of you knew that already, but you can claim an hour every week to pray for revival in the church and that our neighbors would come to know and follow Jesus. You might be thinking, Stacy, I don't know. An hour's a really long time to pray. I don't think I could fill an hour. Well, don't worry. There are prayer guides available for you. You can claim an hour for every week at praying247, praying247.org. And that's why our first CWOW Sunday, you know, that weekend where we specifically ask you not to come to the building, but to stay in your neighborhood and love your neighbors. That's why the first CWOW Sunday was focused on prayer walking. We want to pray first, to talk to God about our neighbors before we talk to our neighbors about God. The second FYM principle is love all. If you look at the life of Jesus, you'll see that he loved everyone. Men, women, children, friends, family, even his enemies. All means all. And one of the best ways for us to show our love is through our acts of service. That's why we focused our last CWOW Sunday, last weekend, on serving. And the stories that are coming back to us about what the Lord did are truly touching. So fun to read those. Let me share one that Ed McCash wrote to us to say, hey, my folks, Jack and Fran, moved into a home just behind our house in Graysdale this past spring. A number of Midtown folks helped unload the U-Haul trucks a few months ago, and Jorn and Jerry built them a brand new bathroom. They've never known, get this, they've never known what it's like to be part of a church family. So I wanted to bring a group of friends in to do some yard work and bless them this morning. We had a group of Midtown friends come over and help do some weeding, mulching, a few other yard projects over the course of 2 or 3 hours. At the end of it, my mom came out of her house with her walker and her oxygen, and I explained that groups from our church were all over the community this morning serving folks with small projects just like this. And I explained that Shei was one of our pastors and that he'd like to pray a blessing over them and their new house. They warmly accepted the offer, and the group of us prayed for them to know God's peace, to know God's blessing in every way in the coming months and years. It was a sweet moment, and I'm very grateful for the helping hands and the opportunity to share Jesus' love with my folks. That's what it's about. The third principle is invite often. Jesus said, "Come, follow me." And we get to turn that around and say, "Come with me. Come join me as I follow Jesus." This is the heart behind our next CWOW Sunday, coming up the 4th Sunday in June. You're going to hear more about this in the days to come, but we want to be the kind of people who invite others into our lives, who invite others to know Jesus, to experience the life that he promises. Pray first, love all, invite often. We believe that these are the keys to us living on mission with Jesus, to seeing revival in our own lives, renewal in the church, and an awakening in our neighborhoods. These are the core elements to living a kingdom life, to walking with Jesus, to living as part of his family, a family sent into the world as apprentices of Jesus who show others how to be apprentices. When you live like this, you'll be part of an epic release of leaders into our communities, into our world, and we believe that that will directly lead to a doubling of the number of Christ followers, of Jesus-apprentices in the neighborhoods we call home. So, what if you say yes to Jesus? Well, if you say yes to Jesus, it will cost you, no doubt about it. But if you say no, it'll cost you more. And I promise you this, if you say yes to Jesus, you'll find your life. And you'll get to be part of the story that God's writing in our community, in your neighborhood. If you say yes to Jesus, you get to join him on his mission to bring life and hope and healing and redemption to your neighborhood. This is the heart behind CWOW Sundays, behind our push to see every last one of us living as front yard missionaries. We truly believe that these strategies, these action steps will lead us to the next chapter that God has for us. Do you know any other church in the world who's asking people to not come to the building once a month? Probably not. Every other church we know is doing everything they can to get more and more people to come back to the building. But that's not really the mission that God's called us to. We're talking about the mission of God, this mission that Jesus launched with just a handful of apprentices in the Middle East over 2,000 years ago. That mission hasn't changed. That mission is why Front Yard Missions is such a big deal to us. This is not just a Pastor Dan thing. This is not just a program that we're going to try for a few months until we run out of steam and we move on to the next thing. Calvary leadership is heading into the future united and together on this. It's our unabashed intention to join God where he's at work. And we want you to be part of this. This is too good to miss. If you say yes to Jesus, it will cost you control, comfort, and convenience. But if you say yes to Jesus, you'll find your life, you'll find a family, and that life that you find will have purpose and meaning. That life will be lived on mission with Jesus. You'll get to be part of a family living together on mission. You get to have a significant role in the family business, and you get to be part of the story that God's writing in our community, in your neighborhood. So what if you said yes to Jesus' invitation to join him where he's already at work? Let me pray. Father, thank you for this invitation to die to ourselves and to find our lives in Jesus. Thank you for this invitation to be part of not just a team, but to be part of your family. Thank you for redeeming us, for loving us, for rescuing us, and for making it possible for our lives to have real meaning. Thanks for believing in us. Thanks for calling us to do hard things, for supplying us with everything we need to do the things that you've called us. I pray that you would help us to think clearly and to respond well, to say yes to you. In Jesus' name, amen. I'll be back in just a minute to close, but why don't you listen to the worship team lead us through another song before I do?
I'm caught up in your presence. I just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never want to leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I just sang another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm sorry when I've come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm caught up in your presence. I just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never want to leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I just want you. And nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I just want you. And nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I just want you. And nothing else. Nothing else, Jesus. Nothing else will do. just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment, and I never want to leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you.
Thank you, worship team. It's so good. I'd like you to think back to the story of Rich. I know, not his name. The young man was on the right track. He had been working on spiritual practices from his childhood. He wanted to know more about the eternal life that Jesus was talking about, more about the kingdom. What do I have to do? Jesus invited him to set aside the things that were holding him back, the things that he had built his life around. He laid a hard task in front of this man. He invited the man to make a big change about what his life was going to be about. And he invited the man to be with him. It was a both and, a be and a do. It was an internal change that had external implications. Jesus is making that same kind of invitation to us today. Let go of the things that aren't bringing you kingdom life and be with him. So what do you need to do to say yes to Jesus today? That's his invitation. That's our hope for you, that you would say yes to Jesus and join him where he's already at work. Thanks for being part of Calvary Online. We look forward to the next opportunity to step into your screen or into your living room and to talk about what Jesus is doing. God bless you guys.
I just want